All right, apologies. I've been a little bit under the weather, so I'm not gonna do this stream live today, but I will do tomorrow's stream live. Long story short, I've been cold for a few days, so I took like 2 days off, and today would have been what, the third day. But the point I am trying to make, we are going to finish volume 1 of Shadow Slave tomorrow. So I'm gonna do my best to read as much as I can today, because I know the last chapters. You know what? I'm probably lying. Well, we'll see how long the chapters are. We'll probably have to finish Tuesday, but depending on how long this video is, and if you make it to the end of the video, we will, you know, knock on wood, we will announce that, hey, we are finishing Shadow Slave within 24 hours that this video goes live. Knock on wood. That being said, let's get right into the video. So yes, we're at chapter 66, 67, and volume 1 ends around 90. So let's just get right into it. I like what I've been reading so far, and I'm kind of curious to see how we take out the knight. The last thing I remember, he had a wound in his chest, so we'll see if we use that to our advantage. Also, my nose is really stuffy and congested, so there's probably going to be a few jumps here and there if I can catch myself before I cough. You know, so I'll save that ugly part, you know, for off stream, or at least off video. Okay, now let's get into it. Shadow Slave chapter 67. Oh yeah, we ended off with Sunny's echo dying. Okay, let's see what happens. Chapter 67 is called Racing Against Time. Your echo has been destroyed. Sunny stumbled and almost fell. Cassie gripped his shoulders tightly and leaned back a little, trying to help him keep a balance. With fallen leaves falling out from under his feet, Sunny somehow managed to catch himself in time. No. Anger and regret clouded his mind, but it was too late to do anything. His trusty scavenger was dead, sliced and torn apart from the giant creature. The ease and brutality with the carapace demon had decimated the poor brave beast would have been insulting if it wasn't so terrifying. It only took him a split second. The echo was gone. Damn. Hold up, let's fix our lighting. Okay, that's a lot better. The echo was gone. Not only had Sunny seen its tragic end through the eyes of his shadow, he also felt the subtle connection between them disappear. If his soul see, one of the spheres of light shimmered and vanished, leaving the silent surface of the water a little too dark. He had lost his most valuable possession. But the bitterness Sunny felt was not only because of how useful the echo had been or how much money it could have brought him in the real world. He had actually grown to like the mindless scavenger quite a bit. It was a big, loyal, and reliable. It even seemed to possess a strange sort of stubborn, off-putting personality, just like his shadow. And now it was that, gritting his teeth, Sunny ran like a madman. There would be time to mourn the loss like the loyal echo later. Right now, they had bigger problems. Sunny, what happened? Cassie's whisper sounded worried and intense. She must have felt the change in his mood through his posture and body language. To be completely honest, Sunny was in no shape to talk, running up the hill at a top speed with a blind girl on his back. No matter how delicate and the light she was, he had been a tall task for him without the support of the shadow. He was struggling to breathe, and there was still a considerable distance to the great tree. However, Sunny had to answer, his voice hoarse and rugged. He killed the echo. Damn. Then there was no time for words anymore, because things were turning from bad to worse. Down at the bottom of the hill, the carapace demon was standing above the mutilated remains of the scavenger, looking at them with contempt. Heavy drops of the azure blood were falling from each of his 4 upper limbs. Suddenly, the corpse of the echo began to shine with soft light. Then it shimmered and dissolved into a river of tiny sparks, which then fell to the ground and disappeared, leaving no trace of the hulking scavenger behind. Even if its blood on the demon's sides and the pincers was gone, after all, the echo was just a manifestation of a slain nightmare creature and not the real thing. It came from nothing, and it was now returned to the state of nothingness. However, that carapace demon was not looking at the unexpected light show. Instead, it was staring at one of the particular spots on the ground. There, a lonely human shadow was frozen in confusion, uncertain what to do. With the body of the echo and the consequentially its spacious shadow gone, it was instantly revealed and had nowhere else to hide. Crap. The demon tilted his head, then moved to the speed of lightning. I'm sorry, how fast does it move? The demon tilted his head, then moved with the speed of lightning and pierced the shadow of a scythe. Sunny flinched, ready to experience blinding pain. But nothing happened. The shadow, which had raised its hands in fright, looked down at the massive blade protruding from his chest and scratched its head. It was completely fine. Well, of course, it's just a shadow. Okay, good. Now we know that. Well, of course, it was just a shadow after all. One had to have a body to be susceptible to such attacks, right? What else did I think would happen? Meanwhile, the demon, I assumed they were like connected, like if the shadow receives pain, he would receive pain, but I guess not. Right? What else did I think would happen? Meanwhile, the demon was staring at the nonchalant shadow, the menacing scarlet light in his eyes blazing brighter. Senna was getting closer to the trunk of the tree, temporarily fueled by adrenaline. Otherwise, he might have fainted from the strain already. Just a little more. They had even changed. They had every chance of making it. The shadow was just had to distract the giant monster for a bit, but it seemed as though luck was not only on his side today. Down below, the carapace demon retrieved the scythe. However, instead of attacking the human shadow again, it suddenly turned around and cast its dark look at the top of the ashen barrel. Where the giant tree stood in all of its magnificent beauty, that bastard was smart after all. Curse it all. Forgetting about the shadow, the behemoth lunged forward, rushing back to the tall hill slope and moved with frightening speed, covering a dozen meters with each second. Get back here, Sunny screamed to his shadows. He approached the trunk of the tree, helping Cassie climb down from his back. Sunny picked up the rucksack that Nephis had left behind and handed it to the blind girl. Be gentle with that. Cassie nodded, well aware of the contents of the rucksack, and carefully hung it on her shoulder. At that time, Changing Star had already reached the lowest branches of the great tree. Not wasting any time, she moved to a spot above her companions, summoned the golden rope, and threw one of them to its end down. Catching the rope, Sunny quickly tied a loop and handed it to Cassie. You go up first. The blind girl hesitated for a moment, then accepted it. Just as she was about to put her foot inside of the loop, Sunny suddenly stopped her. Wait, summon your staff. The wooden staff that Cassie used to walk was actually a magical item capable of summoning strong winds. Oh, I don't remember this. In their travels, they rarely had a cause to use it, but now it could come in handy. Surprised and unsure of the reason, she nevertheless did as she had asked, summoning the memory of her seat of soul. The wooden staff appeared in her hand. Sunny lightly hugged the blind girl from behind and turned her body, guiding the hand holding the staff in the necessary direction. Then he said, now summon the wind. In the next moment, a strong gale rose around them, blasting fallen leaves of the ashen sand into the air. Instantly, a large portion of the island surface was stripped bare. More sand was revealed beneath. Meanwhile, the shadow was racing against the carapace demon. The massive creature was already halfway up the hill, moving with the speed of a rushing train. The nimble shadow, however, was even faster. It had already overtaken the behemoth and was now flying forward, hurrying to return it to its master. Good now go. Sunny helped Cassie put her foot in the loop and stepped back, watching as Nephis pulled the rope up. She was going as fast as she could, which was really fast by human standards. But was it fast enough? Sweating, he counted seconds awaiting. His life now depended on whether or not the rope would return before the demon arrives. Every moment felt like an eternity. Oh my god, my nose is so congested. I am so sorry. I should have waited another day before reading, but it's okay. We're a little bit sick, but we're gonna power through it. He could already hear the distant but quickly approaching sound of the carapace demons. You know what? I need battle music. Alright, let's leave this song playing since it is battle music. If you guys can guess it, I'll make you a mod. If you guys can guess the song, you're a mod. Every moment felt like an eternity. He could already hear the distant but quickly approaching the sound of the carapace demons, 8 towering legs stomping fiercely through the sand. Finally, Cassie was at the level of the giant tree's lower branches. Nephis helped her step out of the loop and settle on the wind surface of the branch, then threw a rope down again. The demon was stretching the tree, still hidden from the side by a massive trunk. The shadow slipped beneath Sunny's feet and then wrapped itself around its body. Catching the rope, Sunny practically flew up, climbing with incredible adrenaline-fueled speed and landing on a branch beside the girl. He quickly turned around and tried to pull the rope up. The monster could not notice the golden shine of it, otherwise it would have already been for nothing. But there was less than a second left. Oh no, Sunny thought, his heart skipping a beat. But then Nephis simply dismissed the memory, making the golden rope disappear into thin air. A moment later, the fierce mass of spikes and polished metals appeared beneath them. The carapace demon abruptly stopped, gazing around with his burning scarlet eyes. His pincers clicked as if thirsty to tear flesh apart. The terrifying sides were raised into the air, ready to slash and sever. But there was nothing to kill underneath the giant tree. The demon lingered, looking right and left. Then he raised his head and looked up. Thankfully, the branch of the 3 sleepers were hiding on was very wide, more than enough to hide them from the sight. The remaining motionless and silent, afraid to produce even the smallest of sounds. After a while, the behemoth finally lowered his gaze and carefully observed the ground, looking for the traces of possible intruders. However, the ground was clean and bare. All signs of their passage erased by Sunny helped of Cassie's staff in advance. Not finding anything, the carapace demon had no choice but to walk away, moving on to explore other parts of the island. Sunny was finally able to exhale. Some distance away, the demon reached the edges of the area affected by the magical gale. There he finally found 2 sets of footprints, one left behind by Nephis and the other one by Sunny. With an angry roar that sounded like the clamor tearing metal, the giant creature rushed down the slope of the ashen barrel, following the footprints of the wasteland beneath. However, the gray desert was so desolate and empty, with no living creatures in sight. It was colored crimson by the setting sun, and at that moment the ground shook slightly and a thunderous rumble resounded throughout the labyrinth, bringing with it chilling winds and the smell of salt. The dark sea was returning, throwing... Oh, the sea? Wait, hold up. Throwing one last hateful gaze towards the wasteland, the Carapace demon turned around and slowly headed back to the top of the barrel. Alright, they made it out. Chapter? What am I saying? Man, that sounded all weird. Chapter 68 is called Beacon of Death. Sunny, Nephis, and Cassie sat on a branch of the great tree waiting for the sun to set. The branch was wide enough to accommodate twice as many people, so they weren't worried about being spotted from the ground. Still, they remained silent and motionless, wary of the giant monster that sometimes appeared beneath their hidden place. The sound of his footsteps sent shivers throughout the tense bodies of the three sleepers. Not once since coming to the Forgotten Shore, Sunny had hoped for the night to come faster, but there was a first time for everything. They could only proceed for the next steps of the plan after darkness had fallen, so there was nothing to do but wait. Sitting with his back against Nephis and Cassie, Sunny stared into the distance and tried not to think about anything. Obsessing over the past mistakes and future risks was only going to dampen his resolve, and it was already in short supply. Meeting with a setback so early into the plan really threw Sunny off his game. He still couldn't recover from the sudden loss of a precious echo. Of course, he knew beforehand that many things could go wrong, and I feel like many more things are gonna go wrong in this arc. I can already feel it, dude. You guys keep talking about suffering in this series. In fact, he had even warned the girls that there were too many unpredictable elements, and thus it was impossible to reliably predict their chances of success. Nevertheless, he had not expected to lose the strongest member of their group at the very beginning. The first stage of the plan was supposed to be the safest. Things to come were going to be much more dangerous. Sunny looked at the darkening skies, barely visible through the thick canopy of the great trees crown, and listened to the noise of the rising sea. In the dim twilight, Cassie shifted a little, then gently squeezed his hand. Her warm touch made Sunny tense up, but then realizing the blind girl was just trying to console him, he allowed himself to relax. Stupid, what am I, a kid? Holding hands will not solve anything, but despite these grumbling thoughts, Sunny reluctantly realized that he did feel a little bit reassured with no logical reason at all. Maybe they were going to pull this off after all. If it was their will, who dared to stop them? Soon the night descended, drowning the world in absolute darkness. The Ashen Burrow had become an island in the black, undiluting void of the dark sea. The branches of the great tree swayed gently in the darkness, the vibrant scarlet leaves now indistinguishable from the obsidian surface of the wood. The leaves whispered and rustled, creating a calmly melody in the threatening murmur of the surging waves. Sunny sighed, knowing that the moment of the truth was approaching. He was sure of his plan as far as it was possible to be sure of anything in the cursed place. But he also knew all the risks and all the things that could go wrong, and at the end of it all, they were still tossing a coin, hoping that its fall was not going to spell their doom. He felt Nephis' position shift. She turned her head and glanced in her direction, a calm expression on her face. Today, her inexplicable ability to remain composed in any situation, no matter how dire, was especially frustrating. Even though Changing Star could not see anything in the pitch-black darkness of the starless void, she knew that he would notice her questioning look. Sunny closed his eyes and opened them again and slowly exhaled. Let's begin. The three of them moved, performing a rehearsed set of motions. Cassie carefully shifted aside, giving Sunny and Nephis space to do what needed to be done. Sunny gently placed a seaweed rucksack between himself and Neph then opened it. His motions were slow and cautious. Inside the rucksack, two large clay containers lay surrounded by several layers of soft seaweed fiber. These jars were made by Sunny himself, and as such were not particularly sturdy. After all, he wasn't a craftsman. All his knowledge about pottery was received in a single day after listening to teachers. Oh, so his teacher Julius taught him pottery? Listening to teacher Julius rant about the importance of clay and the development of the human civilization. Still, he at least remembered the basics. Inside the jars, all the oil they had gathered from the centipede monsters were splashed around, making Sunny's heartbeat unsteady. A centipede monster had two sacs in its body, each containing a different oily substance. When mixed, these substances produced an incredibly corrosive, deadly oil that could eat through a scavenger's carapace in seconds. It was also highly flammable. That sounds good. The jars contained two components of their centipede oil. If they were to break during their run to the great tree, allowing the components to mix, well, there was a reason why the rucksack was entrusted to Nephis while Sunny carried Cassie despite his inferior physical endurance. The centipede oil was the centerpiece of his plan. Placing the clay jars on the branch, Sunny took out one last thing from the rucksack. It was a makeshift torch made out of bone and more seaweed. Traditionally, torches were supposed to be made out of wood, but on the Forbidden Shore, bones were much more easily found than sticks. In the darkness, he found Nephis' cool hand, took it into his own, and then placed the torch in her open palm. At that moment, Sunny couldn't help but remember the other times Changing Star's hands had touched off his body. The first time was that when he was dying, his chest crushed by the Carapace Centurion's bone scythe. The other time was on the day he handed her the Starlight Legion armor and learned about her cruel flaw. Both days were very memorable, although for different reasons. He had a feeling that this day was also going to be forever etched into his memory, provided they lived to see the morning. Sunny deeply inhaled, "I'm ready." Nephis nodded and then rose to her feet. Standing tall, she grasped the torch and closed her eyes, then pushed as though praying. Clad in white armor with her silver hair dancing in the wind, she looked like a beautiful solemn angel. Then white radiance ignited beneath her eyelids. In the next moment, bright fire burst from beneath her hands, igniting the top of the torch. Changing Stars opened her eyes, extinguishing the light shining in them, and raised the torch high above her hand. In the darkness, not darkness, in the lightness. In the lightness world, this single small flame looked like a lonely star drowning in the sea of the darkness. Simultaneously, Sunny stepped to the edge of the branch, inhaled deeply, and screamed at the top of his lungs, "Hey, asshole, come get me if you dare." Oh shit, we're going in. Then all hell broke loose. Attracted by the sudden burst of light and Sunny's belligerent cries, the Carapace demon appeared out of nowhere and oh shit, in a storm of fury. Okay, now they have advantage in the dark. Its towering legs tore through the ashen sand, throwing clouds off into the air. Two scarlet eyes immediately focused on the shouting human, sending a nervous shiver running down Sunny's legs. I guess we can play this battle track. Yeah, right here, you pile of scrap. Come and get me, fat lobster. This is my island now, he shouted, pretending to not be scared out of his wits. The demon dashed towards him. This behemoth was as tall as a house, but still not enough to reach the branches of the giant tree with its scythes. So for the moment, Sunny was still safe. He was pretty sure that this won't be the case for long, but it was enough time to bring the plan to fruition. If he doesn't miss. Just as the Carapace demon was about to appear right behind the branch Sunny was standing on, he took a deep breath, aimed, and tossed both jars down. Oh, he's gonna put it on fire. The creature reacted with lightning speed, sliced both jars into pieces with horrible scythes. And he gets covered in the oil. However, it was of no use. The oily liquids contained inside still rained on its carapace in a torrent, followed by a scattering of clay shards. Of anything, it only made of the surface of the impact larger, covering most of the demon's metal carapace in a layer of liquid. Damn, we fucking got it, huh? Let me raise the volume down a smidge. The two components mixed, producing the deeply corrosive oil, which was burned into the luster's armor. Sunny held his breath. However, the centipede's monster oil, which was capable of destroying the unbreakable chitin of both scavengers and sentients, turned out to be completely it doesn't work. Completely ineffective against the strange alloy covering the Carapace demon's body. It didn't even leave a scratch on it. Sunny's face darkened. Nephis suddenly appeared by his side, raising an arm. Just as I expected. Luckily, Sunny did not put a lot of value on the oil's corrosive qualities to begin with. He needed the oil for its other qualities, its flammability. Guided by the loud sounds produced by the massive monster, Nephis moved and threw the torch down with a powerful swing of her arm, spinning the torch, streaking through the air like a meteor and landing right in the middle of the demon's carapace. And the next second, the giant creature was engulfed in flames. Sunny did not really expect the fire to be able to damage the demon. He was sure that the behemoth could withstand much more than just a simple heat. But now, covering in burning oil, the Carapace demon shined brightly in the pitch-black night of the Forgotten Shore. He had turned into a fiery beacon, calling all the monsters... All of them? He had turned into a fiery beacon, calling all the monsters of the Cursed Dark Sea to come crawling from its black depths. Oh, that is so not good. These guys need a fucking break, bro. Like, how much worse does it get? Oops, sorry. I just realized I had chapter. I'm not looking up at OBS, and since I'm not streaming, nobody's telling me. I didn't realize I had 8 instead of 68. But now, chapter 69. Nice. It's called The Guest, which is probably not a good thing. The giant demon was engulfed in flames, shining like a bright beacon in the hungry darkness of the night. His polished armor blazed with reflected light, sending radiant glints in all directions. Drops of burning oil were falling to the ground, flaring up as they hit the ashen sand. For a second, it seemed as though time had stopped. Sunny was staring at the incandescent glow of the fire, his eyes wide, almost failing to believe that they had actually pulled his insanity off. Nephis was frozen by his side, her hand still outstretched after the throw, but they really did it. They pulled it off. Sunny never seriously considered facing the Carapace demon in an honest battle. If a battle between a giant death machine and 3 powerless humans could be called honest, however, their lacking strength did not mean that they could not murder the evil creature. True. They just had to be smart about how to do it. For example, they could find something stronger to do the dirty work for them. That's why he had concocted a plan to sneak out of the Ashen Barrow, wait for the night to come like the behemoth of flame, and watch it torn apart by the terrifying monsters of the Dark Sea. And now they were halfway to making the plan a reality. Of course, the most dangerous part of was yet to come. They still had to survive the attack of the creatures of the Blackwater themselves, and before that, the Carapace demon roared with fury, making Sunny feel like his ears were going to bleed. The roar sounded like a deafening cacophony of rusted metal. I don't know how to read that word. Cacophony. Sorry. Dirt moment. Like a deafening cacophony of the rusted metal being torn apart by the giant claws. Two scarlet eyes shone throughout the conflagration of the flames, piercing the young man with a concentrated beam of murderous hatred. Before that, they had to last until the sea monsters arrives. The infuriated demon was out for their blood, and no one knew how much time it would take for the Dark Sea creatures to appear on the Ashen Barrow. Sunny was scared for the demon capable of performing range attacks. If not, he might be able to climb the tree to get to them or try to kill them in a way that had not even considered. In the worst case scenario, they would have to endure his rage for quite a while. Looking into the giant's hateful eyes, he sensed that the creature was thinking in the same direction. When the demon glanced in directions of the great tree of the obsidian trunk, Sunny's heart suddenly skipped a beat. However, in the end, cold rationality won over seething rage in the Carapace demon's mind. Instead of wasting time trying to get out of the three tiny humans, he suddenly rolled out of the ground, hoping to use the sand to douse the flames dancing on his carapace. The whole island shook, almost throwing Sunny off the branch. Crap. That's the second time you said crap. Why did the bastard have to be so smart? For a moment, Sunny entertained the idea of the demon was actually going to succeed in extinguishing the fire before the dwellers of the depths had noticed it. But he didn't have to worry. Suddenly, Nephis turned to face the dark surface of the sea. Her face posed slightly. Sunny was a second late to react, but almost instantly, he too felt a strange change in the world around them. It was hard to describe with words. The rustle of the scarlet leaves suddenly felt quieter. The sound of the waves crashed again. The shores of the Ashen Island louder. It was as though some invisible pressure descended onto the world, making everything feel slightly different. Then the air became colder, and a wall of thick fog appeared from above the dark waters. What? The Carapace demon had also noticed this change. He stopped trying to douse the flames and rose with them from the sand, the oil still burning on the Carapace, not paying any attention anymore. The demon turned to the sea, a sense of grim resignation radiating from his posture. Then it was replaced by dark resolve and frenzied bloodlust. The fog was slowly moved, crawling onto the island. Sunny felt the shivers run down his spine, realizing that it was flowing against the wind. The sound of waves was not muffled and changed, almost impeccably so. And there in the fog, something was moving. He could also make out a figure. It was what? Come on, man. Let me know. What was it? Suddenly, Cassie's small palm covered his eyes. With her voice trembling with tension, she whispered, "Don't look. No matter what happens, don't open your eyes." The fuck? Sunny froze, obediently shuttering his eyes. I'm sorry, is this part of Cassie's vision? Obediently shutting his eyes, a cold sense of fright wrapped itself around its heart. He had never heard the blind girl's voice sound like this before. Not even when she was recalling her terrifying visions. Cassie slowly removed her hand. Blinded, he could only rely on his hearing. At least that was what he thought until the cold fog touched his skin. Then in the muffled silence, he heard Cassie's voice again. Only this time, it was distorted and coming from the wrong direction. Don't look, don't look, don't look. From the wrong direction? Sunny gulped, feeling his hair standing on end. The sound of the blind girl's distorted voice echoed in the fog, surrounding him from all sides. Instead of growing quieter, it was becoming louder, overlapping over itself. Don't look, don't look, don't look. Whoa, why is it in all caps? Then it grew even louder and still turned into a cacophony of screams, crashing into Sunny's like a wave, sounding nothing like what a human vocal cords could even produce. Don't look, don't look, don't look, don't look. What the fuck is it? Sunny stood paralyzed, stunned by the onslaught of inhuman shrieks. All he could do was try not to fall for his knees, and then when his resilience was almost broken, everything suddenly stopped. The abrupt silence enveloped the world, making him exhale with a relief. It was over. A few seconds later, Cassie whispered into his ears, "Open your eyes." After hearing the clear sound of her voice, Sunny was about to do as she told. Then he stopped. Her voice did not sound terrifying and distorted. It was just as usual, sweet and melancholic. It even came from the right direction, but something about it was wrong. What the fuck is it? He lingered, keeping his eyes closed. Why was it so calm? Why didn't he feel the warmth of her breath as she leaned close to whisper into his ear? And how could she lean if he was taller? It's not her. Sunny froze, afraid to even breathe. Cassie's clear, familiar voice repeated, "Open your eyes, open." The mere centimeters away, it exploded with cold, malevolent authority. Malevolent authority. I'd blame me being sick that I cannot read today. Malevolent authority, open your eyes, but he didn't. A second passed, then another, then one more. Each of them felt like an eternity. Sunny trembled, practically feeling his body aging. Finally, the voice returned, but this time it felt though it was not further away withdrawing, no matter what. Soon he was able to hear the rustling of the leaves and the sound of the waves again. He could also hear Cassie and Nephis breathing ruggedly beside him. It seemed that they were also assaulted by the terrifying mimic, and also, somewhere beneath them, the Carapace demon roared and hit the scythes against each other. The loud clamor of the steel resounded beneath the great tree, sending an almost palpable wave in all directions. This wave seemed to expel the unnatural fog, creating an enormous sphere of clear air. Sunny still kept his eyes shut, and the next moment the whole island trembled as the demon clashed with the unknown horror that had been hidden in the fog. Something shattered with a deafening thunder, and the ground shook again, causing the branches of the great tree to sway. With his hands trembling, Sunny outstretched them and grafted onto his companions, drawing them close, holding each other to listen to the sounds of the furious battle, and waited. An eternity later, the fight between the Carapace demon and the guests from the depths was over. Silence had returned to the Ashen Burrow once again. Sunny had long ago lost her tracks of time and grew desensitized to the tremors running through the great tree each time when the two monsters clashed. Sudden stillness gave him a start. With a slight shudder, he turned his head and listened, trying to discern what was happening. In the quiet aftermath of the terrible battle, Nephis hesitated and said in a raspy voice, "We can open our eyes now." What makes you so confident? Sunny lingered before following her advice. He opened his eyes and blinked a couple times. His vision slowly returned. I'm sorry, what was it? Do we talk about it? Sunny lingered before following her advice. He opened his eyes and blinked a couple of times. His vision slowly returned. The pale light of the dawn was creeping from the east, enveloping the island in dim twilight. Beneath them, the surface of the island was torn apart and unturned, almost unrecognizable. It was as though the Ashen Burrow was pummeled by several rounds of heavy artillery fire. And on the surface, damn it, that's a third damn it counter. The Carapace demon was slowly limping back from the edge of the island, leaving a trail of azure blood behind. Oh, we can kill it. He was heavily wounded and in terrible shape, with several limbs missing and a spider web of cracks covering his once pristine carapace. We take it out. Two of his arms were gone, leaving him with a single scythe and a single pincer. Most of his rear legs were either broken or severed, forcing the behemoth to walk in a strange, unsteady gait. It's like the... Sorry, I've been playing a lot of Arc Raiders. It's like one of the fucking... It's like one of the arcs when it's losing its legs, but then like the AI kind of learns how to walk in. However, he was still alive. More than that, none of the armor plates covering his vital organs were seriously damaged. His metal shell still strong and impenetrable. Sunny clenched his fist and glanced at Neff, a dark expression on his face. What do we do? Fucking kill it. Shady Star looked down. She's locked in. There was a cold glint in her calm gray eyes. Stretching her arm to the side, she summoned a sword and said, "Finish him off." Let's fucking go, dude. That's hype. Alright, new milestone, chapter 70. Sunny looked at the wounded demon, a grim look of resolve on his face. At this point, there was no reason to argue. They had no other choice but to face the garden of the island themselves. Sunny's bag of tricks was all empty anyways. In the end, their fates were still going to be decided by the sharp blades. Someone was going to get killed and someone was going to be the killer. How are we going to deal with his armor? Nephis waved the sword in her hand and glanced it down. "I will break through the armor. Can you create an opening?" Sunny nodded, not wasting time on unnecessary questions. If Changing's heart was certain of her ability to cut through the demon's carapace, he had no reason to doubt it. Creating an opening that was not going to be easy, even though the monster had suffered terrible injuries, he was slowly forced to be reckoned with. His size alone was going to pose difficulties. They would have to bring Behemoth down to his knees before even thinking of carrying out any sort of an effective attack. And he was not going to stand still under their assault either. But what else was there to do? While Nephis was tying the golden rope to the branch, Sunny walked over to Cassie, lightly squeezed her shoulder. She tried to force a smile. I take it that the Carapace demon is still alive. Despite the heavy, cold, dark feeling gripping his heart, Sunny tried to make his voice sound relaxed and carefree. Yes, but just barely. Don't worry too much. The assaulting will be over in no time. One way or another, he added inwardly. Cassie smiled, weakened. She was clearly not convinced by his clumsy attempt to reassure her. Sunny hesitated. Hey, have you ever eaten demon meat? The blind girl was clearly surprised by his question. What? No. Sunny grinned. How about a demon steak? I'm an excellent cook. I'll have you know. I think Nephis had sort of monopolized the preparation of food, so I had no choice but to pull all the knowledge from the wilderness survival course to practice. Teacher Julius had indeed spent a lot of time teaching him how to cook all kinds of seemingly inedible things, as well as meats of all sorts of nightmare creatures in preparation for his journey into the dream realm. Hunger was as much of an enemy as the fiercest of monsters. As soon as we get our hands on some demon meat, I'll make you a steak. I'll be the most delicious demon steak you have ever eaten, I promise. Finally, a real smile appeared on Cassie's face. She gave him a courteous nod. All right, then, that's a promise. Meanwhile, Nephis was done with the rope. She threw it down with hesitation and glanced at him. Are you ready? Sunny sighed and closed his eyes for a second, feeling the strength of his body being enhanced by his shadow. Yes, let's do this. As soon as her feet touched the ground, Sunny felt a heavy gaze burning a hole into his chest. Sunny glanced up. He saw the crippling carapace demon staring right at him, a dark glint of shining his armor, one remaining eye. The other one was gone, leaving only a bleeding black gap behind it. The distance the damaged belt to the demon's body seemed even more deliberating. Its carapace was fractured in several places and covered in cracks, each seeping with azure blood. Sadly, none of the cracks were near the vital organs. His horns were shattered, as one of his front legs. In addition, the several rear ones that were either broken or torn off completely. The stumps of his two severed arms were pressed tightly against his torso to stem the heavy bleeding. The other two were hanging to the ground, almost brushing against the ashen sound. The giant monster looked broken and tired. However, it was still terrifying, perhaps even more so than before, because despite the horrible wounds, was still firm and full of evil intelligence. It was still radiating madness and bliss. Are we recording? Yes, we are recording. And bloodless, which was now concentrated on Sunny and Nephis, the architects of his sorry state. I am reading a little bit wrong. I think I got lost. The architects of his sorry state. No, never mind. The first beam of the rising sun shone on spikes, covering the demon's once lustrous carapace, painting them in shades of the burning crimson. Sunny summoned the azure blade and glanced at Nephis. Be careful, he's lightning fast. He was the one who had been seen the terrible creature in action. As such, only he knew how dangerous the demon really was. Nephis nodded, not taking her eyes off the enemy, and stepped forward. The two of them walked towards the waiting carapace demon. Sunny was slightly ahead of the aiming to the circle behemoth. From the right, the side where the demon had both last remaining the size and eyes. Changing Star was a step or two behind him, aiming to the circle of the creature from left, the side where his Spencer's arms were slowly rising into the air. In this battle, Sunny's role was to take the brunt of the enemy's attacks, letting his partner deal the lethal blow when the time was right. Through the tactics understanding that they had developed through the surviving dozens of life or death situations, the two of them were able to cooperate without speaking a single word, fighting almost as one. That is so fucking cool, man. They've been fighting so long, they can fight in unison without even like saying anything. This was their main advantage. As they were closing in, Sunny felt a slight shift in the demon's posture. Instantly, he knew that he was about to break loose. He had warned Nephis about the speed of their enemy, but he had also to deal with it himself. Sunny knew that he was much slower than the giant creature, but he still had to find a way to dodge the massive, terrifying scythe. That wasn't as bad as it seemed. Speed wasn't everything in the fight. Take, for example, Changing Star's training fight against a proud scion of the Han Li clan. Oh yeah, from the beginning and the Awakened Academy, right? Caster possessed an aspect ability that made him 10 times faster than the silver-haired girl. At least, however, in the end, he only won by a hair's breadth. Nephis had almost smashed his face with an unexpected elbow strike. She had just been able to catch Caster unaware, not because of her fast reaction with that big of a difference between their speeds. No matter reaction could have helped her. Instead, she was able to predict and manipulate the opponent's attacks, staring at the strike even before Caster himself knew that he was going to end up in the path of her elbow. The fact that she's able to predict all that, what the fuck? She was in control of the battlefield, and now they had to repeat that feat against an ancient demon of Forgotten Shore. Luckily, his speed advantage was not nearly as insane as Caster's. Almost simultaneously, Sunny and Nephis lunged forward, attacking the behemoth from different sides. He almost moved nearby to tear them apart. Both his Spencer and his scythes rose into the air. Sunny was running as fast as he could, the azure blade outstretched behind him. A fire of cold resolve was burning in his heart. He was ready to live or die by his blade. However, the next moment, his legs seemed to slip in the sand as his eyes opened wide. Sunny stumbled. Not wasting the opportunity, the carapace demon attacked. The terrifying scythe tore through the air, aiming to cut the helpless human in half. But it hit only the sand. He fucking dodged it. Sunny, who had feigned his loss of balance... Oh, it was bait? To bait the demon strike, easily avoided the... I thought he just actually slipped. I was like, fuck, what a coincidence. easily avoided the deadly blade by jumping to the side at the last second. He wasn't quite at the level where he could predict every move of the enemy. Instead of manipulating the enemy into performing a predictable attack was easier. After all, deceit and manipulation were his forte. Temporarily safe from the threat of the scythe, Sunny dashed towards the demon's legs. At the same time, Nephis had managed to avoid the massive pincer and was closing in on them too. They reached their goals almost simultaneously, one from the right, the other from the left. Sunny slashed with the azure blade, feeling it hit the polished armor and bouncing back without leaving even a slight scratch on it. Though pain radiated through his hands on the other side of the behemoth's massive body, Nephis achieved more success. She attacked the already injured front leg of the monster, cutting deep into his flesh through the wide crack into the metal plate. Severely damaging the legs, wasn't able to support the weight of the giant creature anymore. It buckled, sending the demon reeling. At this point, a scavenger or a sentry who was almost lost to their balance fell into the ground. However, the carapace demon was too smart and inexperienced. He compensated for the loss of another leg by shifting his body weight to the opposite side and thrusting his scythe into the ground to remain stable. Damn it, Sunny had already hoped that bastard would fall down and he's still up. Because then he wouldn't have to do what he was about to do next. But now there was no other choice. What? Cursing inwardly, Sunny briefly looked at the massive body of the giant demon. Heavens only knew how much that thing weighed. Then he held his breath and ducked right under the carapace demon's steel abdomen. Oh shit, okay, so that's his weak spot was in his abdomen, right? Wait, no. His weak spot was in his chest, but he's going for his stomach? Okay. I like the name of this chapter. It's either he did, either Sunny did a mistake or the carapace demon made a mistake. So let's find out. Chapter 71 is called One Small Mistake. With the carapace demon using his deadly scythe to support the weight of his body. Wait, so there's no way for him to attack if he's supporting himself, okay? Sunny was temporarily safe from its sharp blade. Of course, the monster had other means to attack. Each one of its towering legs was like a siege ram, dangerous and capable of devastating destruction. But at that moment, his posture was too precarious. Well, I can't read. To lash out with them, Sunny had at least a second to do whatever he wished to do, with no risk involved. The only thing he had to avoid was going directly under the behemoth, thus putting himself in danger of being crushed to death by the demon's giant body. Coincidentally, that was exactly what he had to do. Crap. I love his, like, I love Sunny's vulgarity, dude. I love it. It's so, like, genuine. He's like, fuck, shit, crap, bullshit. I love it. Glancing up at the massive armored creature, Sunny cursed and dashed forward. A moment later, he dove underneath the carapace demon, feeling the thick shadow swallowing him whole. Instantly, Sunny was covered in a cold sweat. There was nothing but polished metal and murderous intent above him now. All the monster had to do was turn the tiny human into a puddle of blood, was to rest his body on the sand. Under the crushing weight, Sunny's organs would burst as his bones would turn to dust. There wouldn't be anything solid left of him at all, only a thin layer of bloody goo smeared across the ground. That's fucking gross. Not the best situation to find yourself in. Definitely not. With his nerves on the verge of melting, Sunny brandished his sword and rushed forward. His eyes were glued to the joints of the carapace demon's legs. He was utterly focused, losing the slightest movement, waiting for it. With no room for error, Sunny pushed every unnecessary through the emotions, thought, and emotion into the farthest corner of his mind, not allowing dread, doubt, and his tendency to overthink things slowed him down even by a fraction of a second. Time moved extremely slower. It felt as though hours had passed, but in reality, it was only a couple of moments. Sunny was only at the second pair of the giant monster's legs. It was then that he finally noticed the almost impenetrable change in the demon's posture. The tension in his joint changed slightly, indicating that the behemoth was about to move. This was a sign that Sunny was both hoping for and terrified of. Now his survival was wholly dependent on whether or not he was fast enough. As soon as his eyes had... Wow, my voice cracked. As soon as his eyes had registered the change in the creature's posture, Sunny pivoted one leg and dashed to the side, trying to get away from underneath the armored giant. A small cloud of sand was sent flying by his sudden turn, but the demon was incredibly fast. He threw his body down, determined to squash the odious invader like a bug. With inertia and the limits of the human body slowing Sunny down, he felt the metal surface of the carapace beginning to fall down on his head long before reaching the safe zone. Death was approaching. Damn. Death was approaching with abhorrent speed. One step, two. Was he going to make it in time? The carapace demon fell to the ground with a thunderous crash, sending large clouds of sand into the air. The impact was so strong that the whole island trembled. Damn, it's fucking quaking, dude. The whole island trembled. The fierce mass of the falling metal and spikes missed Sunny by just a few centimeters. He flew from underneath the demon's body at the last possible moment by performing a desperate dive. Crushing into the sands, Sunny rolled away and jumped back to his feet, slightly disoriented by the shock of the giant's fall. Hai actually managed to survive. Sometimes life was full of surprises, but all jokes aside, he was not really astonished. His actions, while potentially fatal, had been deliberate and calculated. He was not in the habit of putting his life at risk without being sure that he would be at least a moderate chance of making it out alive. His actions were also always purposely and pursued by a specific goal. In this case, it was to bring the Carapace Demon down. Only by forcing the giant creature down the ground in reach of their blades could they hope to kill it. In the sense this dangerous gamble ended up in resounding success, the bastards were now lying on his abdomen, his carapace and humanoid torso, where all the vital organs were situated, were in Changing Star's attack range. Now Sunny just had to create an opening for her to deal with a fatal blow. Although he still had no idea about how he was planning to bypass the impenetrable barrier of the demon's armor, however, creating an opening was not going to be a trivial task. Despite the fact that the monster's mobility was now severely reduced, the distance between him and the sleepers was almost much smaller, which made dodging the attacks that much harder. Sunny was about to experience the hardships for himself. He was barely back on his feet, with a terrifying sight flashing through the air, threatening to slice his body in half. Sunny had no idea how what Nephis was doing on the other side of the creature's enormous body against the pincers, but dealing with the scythe was almost beyond his abilities. The burning eyes of the demon that followed his every move was not helping the situation at all. With very little time to react, Sunny did the only thing he could think of. He jumped as high as he could and pulled his legs up to his chest, performing a very awkward forward somersault. Because of the number of shadow fragments he had consumed and the physical enhancements brought by the shadow, the height of his jump was nothing short of impressive by human standards. Oh, okay. The scythe's blade whistled beneath Sunny so close that he could feel the wind brushing against his face. Landing on the ground, he dashed forward. Sunny knew that the scythe would come back, but he had a second or two to change his position, getting in front of the behemoth. He had to make the giant creature forget about Nephis completely and concentrate fully on dealing with him and him alone. To do that, he had to get in range of both scythe and the pincer. What a lovely task. Feeling that his time was running out, Sunny spun around and raised his zero blade just as he thought the Carapace Demon was already bringing the scythe down at him again. This time in a ruthless horizontal thrust, the sharp tip of the scythe was flashing through the air, aimed at the chest. However, he had slightly underestimated the demon's reaction this time. As a result, there was already no time to dodge. One small mistake was the difference between life and death of the Forgotten Shore. The scene of their first fight against the Carapace Centron flashed in Sunny's mind. The situation was eerily similar to this one, with the inescapable doom approaching him in speed of lightning, too swift and close to be avoided, brought by a blade of the Carapace creature's size. But Sunny wasn't the same as he was before. Since that fateful battle, he had spent every day training, gaining experience, and gathering power. He had fought his way through hell, paying a price of blood for every step. Damn, man, he's fucking... In chapter 71, he's already grown quite a bit. He wasn't that easy to kill anymore. Instead of a soft flesh, the scythe was met by the hard steel of the Azure Blade. Not only did Sunny block the blow, he even managed to angle the sword in a way that would deflect its most impact instead of absorbing the full force of it. One of his hands was placed on the hilt, the other gripped the tip of the blade was enough strength to prevent the edge. I thought I'd be able to read a lot more. Whew, my throat, I'm a little sore. I'm gonna take a little break, but luckily since this is off stream, I can just pause. So I think we're lucky. Alright, I think we're lucky. One of his hands was placed on the hilt, the other gripped the tip of the blade with enough strength to prevent the edge from cutting his fingers off. The residual force was still enough to send him flying back, but it was not enough to break the bones in his hands. Not with the shadow enhancing the resilience of his body. The Azure Blade, however, was not as lucky. With a sorrowful ring, the blade shattered, breaking off near the cross guard. Beautiful shards of blue steel fell to the ground. Sunny gritted his teeth, knowing what could happen next. He fucking killed it. Sunny gritted his teeth, knowing what would happen next. The spell broke, announcing destruction. Oh, wait, the sword broke! I'm like, hold up. I'm like, okay, it's like it chipped a little. Shit, it actually shattered. Beautiful shards of blue steel fell to the ground. What the fuck is he supposed to do now? Sunny gritted his teeth, knowing what would happen next. The spell spoke, announcing destruction of his trusty sword. Your memory has been... He didn't get to hear the rest of the sentence because the next moment, his body collided with the ground. Sunny bounced a couple of times, feeling flashes of pain radiating through his bones, rolling and finally came to a stop. He was comparatively fine. Standing up, Sunny stumbled and barely managed to remain on his feet. He glanced around and noticed that the trunk of the great tree was not that far away. 24 meters away. Okay, 24 feet. No, wait. Yes. No, 36 feet. Shit, I'll shut up. The Carapace demon was slowly turning his head, planning to concentrate his murderous range on Nephis. This was the exact opposite of what Sunny had to achieve. He had to attract the monster's attention somehow. But what else could he do? As the remains of the Zero blade began to shine with a soft light in his hand, ready to disintegrate into the rains of sparks, Sunny raised his hand and threw the broken sword with as much force as he could gather. However, he didn't throw at the demon. Instead, he threw it at the miraculous tree as though trying to harm it. Not far away, the demon suddenly froze, even if only for a second. His scarlet... Oh, he's mad. He aimed at the tree. Not far away, the demon suddenly froze, even if only for a second. His scarlet eyes followed the shining memory as it flew through the air, pushing the trunk of the giant tree. Then the broken sword fell apart, turning into a shower of white sparks, which then disappeared without a trace. None of them even touched the obsidian bark. However, the Zero blade had already fulfilled its purpose. It distracted the giant for a few precious moments. For changing star, that was more than enough. We did it. All right, we distracted it, and what now? Nephis gets the last hit. I already know what's gonna happen. So we're probably not gonna get this creature, or we're probably not gonna get this double demon as a echo, but I can see this turning into a weapon memory. All right, he broke his sword. So what better point for an upgrade than we kill the dude with its one fucking... He only has one hand that's a scythe, right? That bitch turns into a fucking memory scythe. And now Sunny has a scythe. Oh, it's gonna be so good. I can already feel it. Then he really will be like the Grim Reaper in the fucking shadows. Oh, it's gonna be good. I already know it. If that doesn't happen, who knows? We'll see what happens. As soon as the Carapace demon froze, because I think the one person I have seen with a scythe was Mommy. Wait, was Jet. Sorry, I said Mommy Jet in the past. Jet. I think in the fan art you guys showed me with Jet, she was holding a scythe. So maybe it's not him that gets one, and it's her. But we'll see what happens. As soon as the Carapace demon froze, distracted by the faint threat to the great tree, Nephis lunged forward. There was no hesitation, no doubt, not even the slightest pause between the moment her enemy had lowered his defenses and her reckless attack. Just like Sunny had been utterly focused on observing the monster's movements before, she had been watching and waiting for this exact moment since the beginning of the battle. Changing Star knew that when the opportunity presented itself, it would only last for a second. Even that single second almost cost Sunny his life. Nephis wasn't going to waste his time. Her graceful figure flew through the air like an arrow, releasing from her powerful bow, almost leaving an after image behind. The silver blade of her longsword glimmered, reflecting the light of dawn. The black and white armor seemed to turn into a blur. She was going all in, rushing to the enemy without leaving herself even the slightest chance to retreat. What things were happening too fast for Sunny to form a coherent thought. He could only watch time slowing down to a crawl, a similar emotions ranging in his mind. The demon reacted almost immediately, recognizing the threat, but almost didn't count on the battlefield. A moment of distraction was all it took to lose everything. That one mistake, no matter how small, had been enough to seal his fate. If Nephis was really capable of breaking through the creature's indescribable carapace, that is, otherwise it was all for nothing, and they would be the ones dying instead. The fearsome giant moved his scythe, trying to slice her apart. You mean Sunny's scythe? The fearsome giant moved his scythe, trying to slice her apart. The pincer flashed from the other side, threatening to crush her body into a pulp, but he was a fraction or a second too late. Changing Star was just a tiny bit faster. As she ran, something changed about the cadence of her steps. Sunny couldn't see her face behind the visor of the helmet, but if he could, he would see a grimace of agony contorting Nephis' pale face. In the next moment, a soft white radiance ignited beneath the skin of her hands. However, this time it didn't stay there. Instead, the white flame flowed outwards in the hilt of the silver sword and then into the blade. The sword suddenly turned into sharp, radiating edge. I'm sorry. The white flame flowed outward and it goes into the hilt of the silver sword, and then the blade. So now the blade is engulfed in white flame. Oh shit. The sword suddenly turned into a sharp, radiant edge, burning with incandescent white light, a shine so bright that Sunny felt the desire to close his eyes. However, the radiance wasn't soft and warm anymore. Instead, it seemed to be capable of reducing anything it touched to ash and sharp enough to cut the fabric of the world, itself. Perhaps it was even sharp enough to cut the strings of fate. Sunny remembered how Nephis had described her aspect ability. It can be used for healing. Back then, he had suspected that this phrase of hers implied that there was more to it. It can be used for healing, but not. Oh, you can use it for healing, but that's not what it's for. Ah, okay. I see the implications there. He had suspected that this phrase of hers implied that there was more to it. He even marveled at how precious and rare such an ability would be. It seemed as though he was right. Changing Star's miraculous white flame was capable of both healing and destroying. It possessed an enhancement effect similar to his own shot of control, at least when applied to weapons. Who knew what else it could do? An incredible ability indeed. Looking back, he understood that Nephis had not tortured herself in vain. All the time she pretended to meditate while enduring the excruciating agony of her flaw in secret were meant to make this moment possible, to give her enough fortitude to use this ability in battle without passing out from the pain. She succeeded. The question was, would that be enough? Was her sword strong enough to break the mighty carapace of the awakened demon? After all, no matter how incredible the ability, it was still powered by a weak, dormant soul core of a lowly sleeper. They were about to find out. I mean, they are going to find out. A few steps away from the carapace demon's towering torso, Nephis bent her legs and jumped soaring high into the air. Her sword flashed forward with its vicious thrust so fast that for a moment it looked like a beam of pure white sunlight. Then it, like a falling star. Okay, I understood that reference. Okay, hold up. Cassie's vision. Then it collided with a strange alloy of the giant lustrous armor right at the spot where his heart was supposed to be, of course. Back when they were hiding in the dead Leviathan's empty spine, Cassie had told him about her vision. In that vision, she saw the carapace demon being attacked by a terrible creature on the deep dark sea. In the aftermath of the battle, the demon was severely wounded on the verge of dying. The most horrible wound was on his chest, where the armor was torn apart and shattered, revealing the monster's beating heart. With time, all his injuries had healed, except for this one. While the carapace of the demon seemed to have recovered, in truth, it was never fully restored. In this one spot, the armor was secretly weakened, and it was exactly to that spot that Nephis had delivered her blow. It didn't matter whether her radiant sword was really capable of breaking through the impregnable armor of the awakened creature, because she attacked the only weak spot in his body, the place where his armor had already been broken. With a flash of the white light, the incandescent sword pierced through the metal of the demon's carapace and plunged into his body, unleashing a fury of fire inside the adamantine shell. It seemed as though the giant was suddenly illuminated from within, its beams of light shining through the cracks of his armor. For a moment, the surreal sight was burned into the Sunny's mind. Then Changing Star's sword had reached the carapace demon's heart and sliced it apart, incinerating everything around it and making the deserved blood in the fearsome creature boil and evaporate. Sunny's legs buckled and he gracelessly fell on his ass. What? We did it. The demon staggered, his arm slowly rose as he was trying to pull Nephis into a violent embrace. But then as his body twitched, they fell to the ground. They fucking killed it. Neph landed in the sand and jumped back, ready to defend herself, but there was no need. The proud guardian of the Ashen Bar was dying. The scarlet light in his one remaining eyes was dimming. Any semblance of the intelligence quickly disappeared from his gaze. The demon heavily slumped, all remnants of her strength abandoning his mighty body. Turning his head with an incredible effort, he cast one last look at the great tree. Then his gaze stopped on Sunny. There was no fury or madness in the... I'm gonna kind of hide the bottom in case it says we gained something. There was no fury or madness in their gaze anymore. Only some strange, calm, inexplicable emotion. It almost felt like relief. Before Sunny could discern the meaning of that emotion, the last glimmer of light was gone from the eye of the carapace demon. His head rolled back and fell. They won. In front of the giant body, Nephis had dismissed her helmet. Behind it, her face was pale and tired. Her hair sticking to its sweaty mess. The afterglow of the white radiance was already extinguished, leaving her eyes gray once again. Changing Star kneeled, lay back down on her back, too exhausted to move. The whole fight lasted less than a minute. Damn, all that for a minute. The whole fight lasted less than a minute, but it took everything out of both of them. Sunny followed Nephis' example and lay on the ground, trying to catch his breath. They actually won. He couldn't quite believe it. I want to sleep for a week. Remembering that the Cassie was still waiting in the branches of the great tree, not knowing who lived and who died, Sunny sighed. A few months later, he deeply inhaled. Then wait, I'm sorry. We still haven't heard the spell say, like, you have slain, right? Then, straining his vocal cords, he screamed at the top of his lungs, and the sounds of the morning in the center of the tall hill covered the ashen sand under the branches of a beautiful giant tree. A strange shout could be heard. One demon stake coming right up. What a thing to fucking shout. Well, I guess it's for her, right? Since she's up there. All right. Sunny has killed a demon. We took a little break. I got more tea, so let's keep going. A few minutes later, Sunny heard a noise coming from somewhere above. Looking in the direction, he noticed that Cassie was standing at the edge of the white branch, gripping the golden rope in her hands. Before he could react, the blind girl was already climbing down. She was very cautious, but also quite nimble for someone without sight. He blinked. Is she crazy? That's dangerous. But he was worried for nothing. Cassie quickly reached the ground and let go of the rope, safe and sound. She then summoned her staff and took a hesitant step, trying to remember where his shout had come from. Sunny made his presence known and guided her by saying, "I'm here. I'm here." The blind girl turned her head in the direction and walked forward, carefully feeling the ground in front of her with the staff. Because of how uneven the surface of the island had become, it took her longer than usual to reach him. Just as she was about to walk past, Sunny spoke again. "Hey, Cass." Cassie stopped and lowered her head with a surprised expression. Then she asked, "Why are you laying on the ground?" He smiled weakly. It's very comfortable." Suddenly, the blind girl frowned and asked in a worried tone, "Are you hurt?" Sunny shook his head with a sigh. His sense of humor was not always appreciated. In fact, he often landed him in hot water in the past. "Just bruise all over, nothing serious. I'm just really tired." That one was really intense. Since Cassie was still frowning, he thought for a moment and added, "Neff is also fine. She's just resting a bit further away." Finally, the delicate girl relaxed. Her face was cleared, and she offered him a hesitant smile. "You really killed that demon." Sunny Cassie gazed at the giant corpse and closed his eyes. "Yes, he's very dead." Both of them were silent for some time. Sunny was on the verge of falling asleep. Wait a sec. Maybe the reason Nephis got the final hit, so it wouldn't make sense for Sunny to hear the spell say, like, "You have slain this, receiving a memory." So for all we know, Nephis is like, "Hey, we received the memory. You can have it," right? And she's like paying it forward. "You gave me armor. I give you a scythe." Yeah, he's very dead. Both of them were silent for some time. Sunny was on the verge of falling. Or lower the volume. Sunny was on the verge, as I lose my place, was on the verge of falling asleep when Cassie carefully asked, "So you're going to continue lying there?" He opened his eyes and blinked, trying to remember what was going on. "All right, it's morning. There are things we have to do." The last day was extremely long and exhausting. They had to make preparations to execute the plan, race to the top of the hill, climb the great tree, hide themselves in its branches, risk their lives to set the demon on fire. Not to mention that all the stuff that happened after, all accumulating in a short but terrifying battle against the creature itself. And yet, it was no time to rest yet. They had to take basic precautions at least. Straining his excruciating body, Sunny stood up and offered Cassie his shoulder. After she placed her hand on it, he walked over to the Carapace demon's corpse, stopping at the spot where Nephis was sprawling in the sand. She greeted them with a tired glance. "Good morning." Out of habit, Changing Star tried to force a polite smile. However, today it did not look very convincing. I give it a 3.6. A fucking 3.6. What a random ass number. I give it a 3.6 out of 10. Not great, not terrible. A 3 out of 10 is pretty bad. Soon, the three of them were sitting in a circle, passing around the glass bottle full of cold, refreshing water. Sunny was in the middle of describing their fight with the Carapace demon, so he got distracted for a few moments. Then, when Nephis attacked, she used her aspect ability to ignite her sword and struck at the weakened patch of armor on the demon's chest, the one you told us about. It really was not as strong as the rest of his carapace, so the sword went through and pierced the bastard's heart. Sunny noted that Cassie did not seem surprised at the mention of Changing Star's new trick. Either she knew all along because Nephis had told her, or she saw something in one of her visions. Regardless, he decided to not press the topic. The demon was already severely wounded from his fight with the thing from the sea, so it was not enough to finish him off. A few seconds later, he was dead. Cassie shook her head in astonishment. "That is incredible. The two sleepers killing an awakened demon. I thought that stuff only happens in..." Tell me about it. I can't. We're gonna be breaking the fourth wall when she's like, "I thought that stuff only happens in webtoons." When we get the webtoon, it's gonna be so funny reading that. "Wow, I thought that stuff only happens in webtoons." Nephis corrected her. "Three sleepers. With your vision and advice, we wouldn't have been able to do anything." The blind girl lowered her face a little embarrassed. "Still, 2 or 3, it doesn't really change a lot, does it?" Sunny looked from one girl to another. They finally turned to Cassie. "You're right, it's not something one would expect to happen, but anyways, I promised to cook demon meat for you after this is over, didn't I? Are you ready to witness my incredible culinary talents?" He smiled, already tasting the juicy tender meat in his mouth. However, Cassie suddenly frowned and a hesitant expression appeared on her face. "I don't know about that." He raised his eyebrows. "What, why?" She lingered before answering. "Well, it just seems weird to eat the meat of an intelligent creature, even if it was evil. I don't think about it before, but now it just doesn't seem right, I guess." Sunny blinked. Actually, he did not think about it either. In retrospect, the idea of making steaks out of a creature whose intelligence was comparable to theirs did seem a little wrong. No, it's kill or be killed. Even if that creature was a bloodthirsty demon who would have swallowed them whole without a second thought. It was just how things worked in the dream realm. Monsters devoured humans, and humans devoured monsters. It was a circle of life. No, a circle of death. But the Carapace Demon was not only smart, he had it. It's a title drop. I didn't even say that. The title of this chapter was what? Oh my god, I didn't even update this. It was The Circle of Death, but the Carapace Demon was not only smart, he had his own thoughts and personality. Even though nightmare creatures were universally insane and obsessed with murder and destruct, just like he was, there was also other qualities to the Ironclad Giant. He was proud and fearless, even valiant. Can I not read? He was proud and fearless, even valiant. When fighting against terrifying monsters of the Dark Sea, he did not hesitate to stand his ground, refusing to surrender. Kicking the meat of someone like that could indeed be considered strange. How come Teacher Julius did not educate me on the ethics of eating your enemies? What an oversight, misunderstanding. Sunny's silence. Cassie blushed and said, "Sorry, I know it seems ridiculous, but that's just how I feel. You and Neff don't have to do the same." Sunny shook his head. "No, you might be right. I understand, sort of. It's just that we didn't bring any supplies with us now, so we won't be able to eat anything unless we go hunting." The blind girl sighed, then her face brightened and she said, "What about the great tree's fruits? I bet they're delicious." Oh, you're right. Sunny looked at her in amazement. "Are you serious?" Cassie was visibly confused by his question. Yes, why?" He blinked a couple of times before answering. "That tree was magnificent and pretty, but it's also very strange and suspicious. Why is it able to grow here when nothing else can? I'm pretty sure that it's the reason why all the coral around the Ashen Burrow is dead. From the tree, it's sucking everything up. Have you seen anything else capable of damaging the labyrinth itself?" Sunny looked at Cassie, then at Nephis, trying to show how serious he was about this. "In any case, it's too creepy. I don't think we should eat these fruits. Who knows what they'll do to us?" The blind girl smiled. "You're being a little too paranoid, don't you think? A tree is a tree. Actually, I think it's a wonderful example of how life can prevail against all odds. Even in this terrible place, I'm willing to bet that its fruits are perfectly fine." He stared at her, not knowing what to say. How could Cassie be so dismissive of his completely valid concern? That wasn't like her at all. Unpleasantly surprised, Sunny turned to Nev, hoping that she would support him. Chainstar thought things through before speaking. Then she said in a measured voice, "Sunny's right. There are too many strange things about that tree. Eating its fruit would be too risky." Finally, a voice of reason. He exhaled relief. However, his heart was still inexplicably gripped with worry. As Cassie sighed with disappointment, Chainstar turned to him and asked, "The echo was destroyed." Sunny's face darkened. He was still pained by the loss of his loyal scavenger. "Yeah, the demon acted faster than I had expected. He killed it before I could do anything." Nephis frowned. "Too bad. Our speed will be severely reduced." "Have you no heart, woman? At least pretend to be sad. My poor Echo was gone." She's getting straight to the point. Nephis getting straight to the point. It's so fucking funny. She's like, she's all business right now, dude. "My poor Echo's gone." His shadow shook its head, amazed at the childishness of its master. Senden was also surprised by his reaction, considering that his own first thought after the Echo had died was about how much money he would have been able to make by selling it. "Yeah, it's a pity." Changing Star gave him a nod and then asked, "You also lost your sword?" Sunny sighed and gritted his teeth. "Yeah, it shattered when I blocked the demon's scythe, which hurt even more than the death of his scavenger. Azure Blade was his first sword. He fought and trained with it for a long time. It was already like a part of him, and now it's gone, man." Oh my god, it's literally what the next sentence said. "And now it was gone." Nephis raised his hand. "Well, you're... what did I say, dude? Well, you're in luck. I received a memory after killing the Carapace Demon. It's a weapon. It's a fucking scythe. Oh, let's go, dude. Did I say or did I not say we were gonna get a memory, huh? We fucking got one, and it's a weapon." Sunny's hearts. Oh, this chapter is called Midnight Shard. So I guess the weapon is called Midnight Shard. Fuck, man. My nose is so stuffy. It's so hard to fucking speak. Sunny's heart skipped a beat. Instantly, he forgot all about the Azure. He moved on so fast. Instantly, he forgot all about the Azure Blade. Yeah, that sword held a certain sentimental value, but who the hell cares about sentimentality? It came from a Carapace scavenger, which wasn't bad at all for its current rank. Few sleepers got to wield awakened weapons, but this new memory came from an actual awakened demon, a demon. This made it an awakened memory of the 3rd tier, 2 whole tiers above the Azure Blade. There were 7 tiers in total. Oh, wait a sec. 7 tiers, 7 seals, 7 heads in Cassie's memory. I wonder if the seals represent like a tier. There were 7 tiers in total, corresponding to the 7 classes of the nightmare creatures, from beasts to titans. Strictly speaking, a higher tier did not always mean that a memory will be more powerful, but generally, the more advanced a creature was, the more unique the formidable memories it left behind. That's why the Puppeteer's Shroud, which came from the Awakened Tyrant and thus considering to be a tier 5 Awakened armor, was so precious. Please be awesome. Sunny tried very hard to not let his excitement show on his face. Pretending to be nonchalant, he kept his voice even and said, "Really? That's good." Nephis took his hand, running all Sunny's attempts to appear calm and close her eyes, hiding the startled expression on his face. Sunny felt a spark of energy traveling from her body to his. It was just like the time he transferred the Starlight Legion armor to her, only in reverse, and now she paid it forward. He received a memory, Midnight Shard. Cool name. So nonchalant. He summoned the runes and impatiently searched for the description of his new weapon. Memory, Midnight Shard, memory rank, awakened, memory type weapon. Memory description, forged from the shards of a fallen... Oh, a fallen star? Oh? Forged from the shard of a fallen star, this stalwart blade is firm and unyielding. Stalwart blade is firm and unyielding, so it's not a scythe. It favors those who are willing to fight to the last drop of the blood and knows no surrender. Interesting. Not wasting any time, Sunny summoned the Midnight Shard. Immediately, an elegant sword appeared in his hand. The sword looked a bit like the Azure Blade, but only in the sense that it was a single edge and had a long hilt and suitable for 2 hands. However, this was where the similarities ended. For starters, his blade was much longer, somewhere between 70 and 80 centimeters, and slightly curved. It was forged out of the same bright, lustrous metal of the Carapace Demon's armor. It was incredibly sharp. The hilt was made out of polished black wood, quite similar in appearance to the onyx branches of the great tree. The crossguard was round and sharp and more pronounced than that of the Azure Blade, offering better support and protection to the wielder's hand. The sword had no decorations nor ornaments, no embellishments. It was simple and austere, like a true weapon designed for battle and battle alone. It seemed to radiate a cold, fearsome aura. As soon as his hand touched the Midnight Shard, Sunny felt that his sword possessed an unbreakable will. Its blade was strong enough to withstand the devastating blows without suffering any damage. With this sword in his hand, nothing would be able to leave Sunny's unarmed again. More than again, there was a strange new sensation somewhere deep in his heart. When Sunny held the Midnight Shard, he could feel a subtle presence, as though there was a deep well of power hiding inside of him, just beyond reach. He couldn't quite understand how to access that power yet. He doesn't know how to access it. He could feel a subtle presence, as though there was a deep well of power hiding inside of him, just beyond reach. He couldn't quite understand how to access that power yet, but it was certainly real. I guess I'll have to win its favor first, but how do I do that? I'll have to experiment later. Admiring his new weapon, Sunny looked at Nef and said, "Even I know what type of sword it is. It's a... Oh, it's a fucking katana!" It's a katana, right? She studied the Midnight Shard and then answered, "Technically, it's a Tai Chi. It's longer than the traditional katana and has a slightly different blade shape, but they're quite similar." Okay, so it's a katana slash tachi. A tachi, well, it sounds nice anyways, and most of the principles he had learned with the Azure Blade could be applied to a sword of this type as well. Since they share the same foundation, the new acquisition wasn't quite enough to make Sunny forget about the loss of an echo, but his mood did improve significantly. He liked the Midnight Shard a lot. There was beauty in its simple, resolute design. It was understandable and deadly, kind of like Sunny himself. Sunny is beauty in its simple, resolute design. It was understated and deadly, kind of like Sunny himself. It was a significant upgrade. Suddenly, a dark thought appeared in Sunny's mind. Glancing at Nephis, he cleared his throat and said after a bit of hesitation, "It's a very nice weapon. Tier 3, no less. Are you sure that you don't want to keep it for yourself?" Changing Star was the only one to deal the final blow to the Carapace Demon after all. By right, the memory belonged to her, but Sunny really hoped that she would refuse. Nephis shook her head. "I already have a sword. It suits me." Inwardly, Sunny sighed with relief. Good, he thought, making you wonder, though. If she's unwilling to change her longsword for a tier 3 weapon, then what is that tier of that silver sword of hers? Oh, that's a good question. He didn't buy the idea that it simply suited Changing Star better, even for a second. She had told him herself that the principle of using these type of swords was basically the same. Upgrading to the Midnight Shard and giving the old weapon to Sunny would not have caused her any problems. The only reason she would refuse it is that it would have been a downgrade instead. Once again, he became curious about the exact circumstance of how Nephis had gotten her true name. To receive his own, Sunny had to kill an awakened tyrant. Could it be possible that she had done the same, or even something more incredible? But he was too tired to try and fish out for information. They all were afraid the strange winged creatures. What the fuck? Winged creatures? I forgot about this. Afraid that the strange winged creatures they had seen devouring a dead centurion would appear again. This time, to claim the remains of the Carapace demon, the three sleepers relocated to a far side of the island and hid behind the trunk of the great tree. Only when they were sure that nothing would be able to notice them from above, and did they finally allow the exhaustion to prevail and went to sleep, Sunny fell into the dreamless darkness, almost instantly happy to finally be able to rest. However, this time something strange happened. He actually saw a dream. He saw a dream? Strange, Sunny thought this isn't supposed to happen in dream realm, right? Then there was no time to think. I forgot you guys mentioned that. Technically, you don't dream when you're in the dream realm. So what the fuck did he see? Huh. Okay, so I'm probably gonna stop it right there. We're gonna read for. Oh, I dropped my mic at the last second. Damn, mic fall counter 1. So I'm gonna stop reading right there. We've killed a fucking demon. We received a katana. We're literally making progress in this fucking dream realm. Fucking, he's received the vision. Everybody's getting stronger, and it's like, how much higher are we going to climb by the end of this arc? I'm gonna end it right there. If I'm still feeling good, I might come back at the end of the day and read a few more chapters so I can get closer to 80. And then that way Monday stream, we can knock out like 80 something to 90 and finish volume 1. But we'll see how that goes. I'll try and read a little bit later today. If not, I'll just upload the video as is. Or if I do read later today, I might just make it a 2-part video. I could probably just read like another 30, 40 minutes. Then we'll see what happens. If not, we'll save the rest for Monday. But today we were able to knock out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 chapters in about an hour. That's not that bad. All right, that being said, like what you see, you want to see more? Peace. Have an amazing day. I think it's easy. Doing a peace sign this way, it's kind of hard to see on camera. Peace. If you like what you see, you want to see more, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, leave this is a really bad outro. Let me slow down. You think after reading 1,300 plus chapters of Lord of the Mysteries, I'd get better at these outros and reading, but it just, you know, we're always at a bottleneck. You know, you never know what it's gonna be. If you like what you see and you want to see more, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share the video, turn on the bell icon for our uploads, as it helps the YouTube algorithm pick up the easy geeky read through / reaction videos. Bam! That was a good outro. Now I gotta memorize that by heart and learn to say it quick. All right, peace. Have an amazing day, and I'll see you guys all very, very soon. Later, guys.